She had been laughing with her friends all week about the blind date they had set up for her. They kept teasing her, saying it would be the most ridiculous experience she would ever have, and she had to admit she expected it to be a disaster. She was not really interested in dating anyone right now. After a long relationship that had ended painfully, she had promised herself to take her time. But the persistent nudging from her friends had finally made her agree, mostly because she wanted them to stop talking about it. She thought it would be funny to go and make a show of it. Maybe she would play along just enough to amuse herself and her friends. She dressed carefully, but without trying too hard. She chose something simple but nice. She wanted to feel comfortable, not like she was trying to impress someone she might never see again. She checked her reflection one last time and took a deep breath. Maybe she could make it a funny story later. The cafe was cozy, the kind that made you feel like the world outside did not matter for a little while. She liked the soft light and the smell of fresh coffee. She arrived a few minutes early, telling herself that at least she would have a chance to calm her nerves and observe her surroundings. She scanned the room and spotted him almost immediately. He was sitting at a small table near the window, holding a cup of coffee and looking slightly lost in thought. There was something simple and real about him that made her pause. He did not look like the kind of man her friends would describe as quirky in a funny way. He looked tired but strong, quiet but present. He noticed her almost at the same moment and gave a polite smile. There was a kind of hesitation in his eyes, a nervousness that made her feel unexpectedly at ease. He waved softly, trying not to look awkward. She approached the table, and they exchanged a few polite words, both of them testing the waters. She had expected a joke, a ridiculous character, someone who would make the blind date feel silly. But he was different. He seemed sincere. He seemed human. As they sat down, the awkwardness lingered for a moment. She made a small joke about blind dates being a kind of test, and he laughed lightly. It was not a big laugh, not a showy one, just a quiet acknowledgement that he understood. She liked that. She liked the honesty in his reaction. He asked her about her day, and she asked him the same. The conversation was simple at first, but it felt natural. She noticed the way he listened, really listened, instead of waiting for his turn to speak. She noticed the warmth in his voice, the careful way he chose words. She tried to imagine what the story of his life might be. He did not seem like someone who wasted time on nonsense. There was a seriousness about him, but not a heavy one. He smiled occasionally, eyes lighting up briefly before returning to a calm, thoughtful expression. She felt a little guilty for expecting a joke. Maybe she had been wrong to assume this would be funny. Maybe it was going to be something else, something real. Then she noticed a small photo on the table, tucked beside his coffee cup. It was a picture of a child smiling widely, a little messy. It's the kind of smile that makes you feel something warm inside, even if you do not know the child. She asked about the photo, curious but trying to sound casual. His expression changed slightly, a softness appearing that she had not seen before. He explained that it was his child, a little boy he cared for deeply. She did not know what to say at first. She had known he might be single, but she had not thought about the responsibilities he carried, the life he had outside of these few minutes in the cafe. He spoke quietly about the boy, about the small challenges of parenting, about the moments that made him proud and the ones that kept him awake at night. There was no complaint in his voice, only honesty and dedication. She felt something shift inside her. This was no joke. This was a man living a life that demanded real strength, patience, and love. The conversation moved on naturally, as if the child had only been a brief glimpse into who he was. They talked about books, movies, favorite places to visit. She found herself laughing more than she expected. The kind of laughter that feels like it comes from deep inside, not forced or polite. He laughed too, quietly, but fully. She realized she was starting to enjoy herself. She had come expecting a joke, a story to tell her friends, but instead, she found something real and unexpected. She asked more about his daily life, how he balanced work and parenting, and he spoke honestly. There were struggles, yes, moments when things did not go as planned, moments of exhaustion. But there was also joy, small victories, little celebrations of everyday life. She found herself admiring him, quietly without meaning to. She realized she had never considered what it meant to really care for someone so fully, to put someone else's needs before your own every day. At one point, he excused himself for a moment, and she watched him interact with a young server who seemed a little unsure. He spoke kindly, patiently, offering a smile and gentle words. She noticed the same care he gave in all interactions, not just the big ones. There was a consistency to his character that she found rare and appealing. It was not about appearances or impressing anyone. It was about being present and thoughtful. When he returned, they continued talking, the conversation flowing more easily now. She asked about his hobbies, his favorite memories, and he shared stories that revealed humor, warmth, and humility. There were moments that made her smile quietly to herself. Moments that reminded her of the goodness that could exist in people, even when life was difficult. She felt a strange sense of comfort, the kind that comes from meeting someone who does not try to be more than they are. As the date went on, she found herself forgetting the joke she had expected. The idea that this was something funny or absurd disappeared. She realized she was genuinely interested in him, curious about his life and the way he saw the world. The nervousness she had felt before arriving had faded, replaced by a quiet excitement. She wanted to know more, to see the world from his perspective, to understand the depth of the life he led. She noticed little gestures, small actions that revealed more about him than words could. The way he reached for the sugar for her without being asked. The way he listened carefully to her stories. The way he remembered small details she had mentioned earlier. It was all simple, ordinary, but it felt significant. It felt real. She realized she had been so focused on the idea of the blind date as a joke that she had almost missed the chance to see something genuine. By the end of the meeting, she felt a mix of emotions. She was surprised by how much she had enjoyed herself, by how much she admired him, and by the quiet hope that perhaps this could be the beginning of something meaningful. She felt lighter than she had in months, as if a weight she had been carrying was lifted, replaced by curiosity and cautious excitement. They walked out of the cafe together, exchanging smiles and small talk. He offered to walk her to her car, and she accepted. The evening air was cool, refreshing, and she felt a sense of clarity. She realized that sometimes life surprises you in ways you do not expect, and that the people who seem ordinary at first glance can carry extraordinary qualities within them. She thanked him for the coffee, for the conversation, for the honesty he had shared. He smiled, quiet and modest, and told her he had enjoyed it as well. There was no grand gesture, no dramatic declaration, only a sense of mutual understanding and respect. She felt a warmth that went beyond attraction, something deeper and more lasting. As she drove home, she thought about the day and the man she had met. She realized that the joke had been on her all along. She had expected something shallow and amusing, but what she found was depth, sincerity, and quiet strength. She felt a spark of excitement for what might come, but also a deep appreciation for the moment they had shared. She arrived home and sat for a moment, reflecting. She felt grateful for her friends who had nudged her, even if she had only agreed reluctantly. She felt grateful for the man who had shown her that life could be complicated, yes, but also rich with small joys and real connection. She realized that the first part of this unexpected story was just beginning. She was curious to see where it would go next. The blind date had been a joke, but the single dad had not. And in that realization, she found something she had not expected: hope, warmth, and the faint but undeniable possibility of love. The days after the first meeting felt strange and new. She found herself thinking about him more than she expected. It was not just curiosity. It was a quiet interest that made her smile when she remembered little moments from the date. The way he listened, the way he cared, the soft laugh that felt genuine and easy. She could not understand why she had been so ready to expect a joke. When there was nothing but honesty in his presence, she decided to send a message. Something simple, just to say she had enjoyed the time together. She hesitated before pressing send, worrying if it would seem too eager, or if it would be interpreted the wrong way. She had not realized how much she had been hoping for a connection, even if she had told herself she did not need one. When she finally sent the message, her heart beat a little faster as she waited for a reply. His reply came not long after. It was polite, thoughtful, and kind, showing he had remembered their conversation and the little details she had mentioned. He suggested meeting again sometime soon. Nothing rushed, just a casual meeting to continue talking. She felt a wave of relief and excitement. This was not about pressure or obligation. This was about getting to know someone who seemed real and solid in a world that often felt uncertain and shallow. They agreed to meet a few days later at a small park near the city. It was the kind of place that felt peaceful and quiet, with paths lined with trees and a small pond where ducks swam lazily. She arrived first and walked slowly along the path, feeling the crisp air on her face and letting her thoughts wander. She wondered what the child was like, how he managed everything, how someone could carry so much responsibility and still seem so calm and kind. He arrived a little later, carrying a small bag, and she noticed the careful way he moved, the calm patience in his gestures. He greeted her with a nod and a quiet smile, and they walked together toward the pond. The conversation began gently, talking about the weather, the quiet of the park, the small details of everyday life. But soon it moved deeper, as if both of them were quietly searching for understanding in the other. He spoke about the child, telling small stories that were funny, sweet, and sometimes a little touching. How the boy had insisted on helping cook a simple meal and had made a mess that turned into laughter. How he had come home from school excited about a small victory or achievement. She listened, genuinely interested, surprised by the tenderness he showed in describing ordinary moments. It was not just about parenting. It was about the way he valued life, and the people in it. She found herself opening up more than she expected. She spoke about her own past, her fears, the lessons she had learned from disappointment and heartbreak. He listened carefully, without judgment, his eyes attentive and soft. She realized that talking to him felt easy, natural, as if the space between them was safe and welcoming. There was no need to impress or hide. She could be herself, and it felt freeing as they walked along the path. She noticed the way he interacted with the world around him. He helped a small child who had tripped on the path, speaking gently and checking to make sure the child was okay. He thanked a passerby who had held a door for them, smiling warmly. She realized he carried kindness and thoughtfulness, not just for people he knew, but for anyone he encountered. It was quiet, unassuming, but it left a strong impression. They found a bench near the pond and sat down. The ducks swam nearby, quacking softly, and the light of the late afternoon sun reflected on the water. He shared more about his life, about the challenges of being a single parent, about the balance between work, responsibilities, and making sure there was time for joy. She asked questions, not out of judgment, but out of curiosity and admiration. She wanted to understand how someone could handle so much and still remain gentle and grounded. There was a moment when he laughed softly at a memory. A story about the boy trying to teach him a game and ending up winning instead. She laughed too, and in that laughter she felt a connection forming that went beyond first impressions or polite conversation. There was warmth, a quiet understanding, and a sense of shared humanity that made the afternoon feel lighter than it had begun. She realized she was noticing details she had missed the first time. The way he frowned slightly when thinking, the way he gestured with his hands when telling a story, the calm steadiness of his presence. She found herself appreciating the ordinary things, the small gestures, the thoughtfulness that did not need to be announced. It was real, grounded, and unexpectedly comforting as the sun began to dip lower in the sky. Casting long shadows across the park, he asked if she wanted to walk a little further. They wandered along the paths, talking about small dreams, favorite places, and things that made them happy. She felt a quiet joy in hearing his thoughts, feeling the ease in the conversation, and recognizing that he had a depth she had not expected. She was learning that first impressions could be wrong, and that what seemed ordinary on the surface could hold richness underneath. He asked her about her own routines, the small things that mattered in her life. She spoke about work, hobbies, moments that made her smile. He listened, asking gentle questions that showed he remembered what she had said and cared about her perspective. She realized she'd been surprised by how much she wanted to share with him, how natural it felt to talk and be heard without pressure at one point. They came to a small playground, empty except for a few children playing. She noticed the way he stopped to watch, the soft smile that appeared when a child succeeded at climbing or running. She felt a sudden understanding of the care he put into everything he did, not just for his own child, but in the way he observed and valued the world around him. It was a quiet strength that she admired more with every passing moment. They sat again on another bench, and he spoke about his hopes for the future. Small things he wanted to accomplish, dreams for the boy, hopes for stability and happiness. She shared some of her own thoughts and realized how much she respected his honesty and humility. He did not try to impress or boast. He simply shared what mattered to him. It felt genuine and rare in a world that often demanded performance and appearances. She found herself reflecting on her own expectations. She had come to a blind date thinking it would be a joke, a funny story for her friends. But now she realized that the joke had never existed. The man before her was sincere, capable, and deeply human. She admired his dedication, his kindness, and the quiet strength that came from loving and caring for someone else completely. She felt something shift inside her, a gentle curiosity and a desire to see where this connection might lead as the afternoon faded into evening. They walked slowly toward the park exit. The sky turned soft shades of pink and purple, and the air cooled pleasantly. She noticed the way he carried himself, calm and steady, and she felt a sense of comfort in his presence. She realized that she had been carrying tension and doubt from past experiences, but that his quiet sincerity made her feel lighter and more at ease. He suggested grabbing a quick cup of tea nearby before heading home. She agreed, feeling happy to continue the conversation a little longer. In the small cafe, they found a corner table and ordered their drinks. The conversation remained easy, flowing naturally from one topic to another. She noticed she was laughing and smiling more than she had in months, and she realized that this was not just about attraction. It was about feeling seen and understood. She asked him about his daily challenges, and he spoke with honesty, sharing the balance between work, parenting, and personal life. She felt a new appreciation for the way he managed everything with care and patience. She realized that his life was not simple, but he carried it with a sense of purpose and calm that she found rare and admirable. The conversation drifted to lighter topics. Memories from childhood, small adventures, favorite meals. She found herself enjoying the playful side of him. The humor that was never forced but came naturally from his observations and stories. She realized that he had layers, depth, mixed with lightness, and that made the connection feel more real and lasting before they knew it. Evening had fallen completely, and it was time to go. They walked outside together, feeling the cool night air. She felt a quiet reluctance to end the time they had spent together. He offered to walk her part of the way home, and she accepted, feeling comforted by his steady presence. The conversation continued, soft and easy, till they reached the point where they would part. She thanked him for the afternoon, for the stories, for the laughter, for the sincerity he had shown. He smiled quietly, humbly, and said he had enjoyed it too. There was no pressure, no drama, only the understanding that something real had started to grow between them. She felt warmth, curiosity, a quiet hope that this was just the beginning. As she walked the last few steps home, she thought about how different this experience had been from what she expected. The blind date was supposed to be a joke, a funny story, something trivial and amusing. But the man she had met was not a joke. He was real, honest, patient, and kind. She realized that life sometimes surprises you with connections that are deeper than you could imagine, and that it takes courage and openness to recognize them. She felt a sense of gratitude for the small moments, the shared laughter, the quiet stories, the honesty and warmth she had experienced. She realized that this was not about rushing into anything. It was about discovering something true and genuine in someone else's presence. She felt lighter, happier, and quietly excited about what the next meeting might bring that night. She lay awake thinking about the park, the small cafe, the stories he had told, and the way he had listened to her. She realized that the connection she felt was real and meaningful, a spark of possibility in a world that often seemed uncertain. She understood that the blind date had brought her more than she expected, and that the single dad she had met was a person of quiet depth, strength, and cared in that understanding. She felt a sense of hope. Hope that real people existed. Hope that genuine connections could happen unexpectedly. and hoped that perhaps she was ready to see where this story could go. The next meeting felt different from the first two. There was less awkwardness, less hesitation, and more of a quiet curiosity. She felt herself looking forward to it, thinking about the little things he might say, the stories he might share, the small gestures that had made her smile before. It was not just attraction. It was a desire to know him, to see the way he lived, the way he cared for his child, the way he approached the world with patience and thoughtfulness. They agreed to spend the afternoon together at a nearby nature trail. It was the kind of place that felt peaceful and quiet, where the sounds of the city faded into the rustling of leaves and the chirping of birds. She arrived early, walking along the path and feeling the sun warm on her face. She thought about how the previous meetings had made her feel, the surprising depth she had found in him, and the unexpected comfort of simply being in his presence. When he arrived, he smiled quietly and waved. He carried a small backpack with water and snacks, practical and thoughtful. They began walking along the trail, side by side, letting the conversation flow naturally. At first it was simple talk about the surroundings, the trees, the light, and the cool breeze. But gradually, the topics moved deeper. Two personal reflections, experiences that had shaped them, and small stories that revealed character and care. He spoke about challenges he had faced, the struggles of parenting, the moments of doubt and exhaustion. She listened carefully, admiring his honesty and the way he framed difficulties, not as complaints, but as lessons and opportunities to grow. She shared her own experiences, the times she had felt uncertain, the lessons she had learned from past relationships, and the moments that had made her stronger. There was a balance, a quiet understanding, a feeling of being seen without judgment. As they walked, they passed a small creek. He pointed out a spot where the water ran clear and the rocks were smooth, suggesting they sit for a moment. They rested, listening to the gentle sound of flowing water. He told a story about his child discovering the creek for the first time, the excitement and curiosity in the boy's eyes. She laughed softly at the memory, imagining the scene. Feeling warmth spread inside her at the thought of his gentle care, she realized she was noticing details she had missed before. The way he moved with calm purpose, the subtle gestures of thoughtfulness, the quiet patience he showed in every action. It was not about grand gestures or dramatic displays. It was about being present, noticing the small things, caring without needing recognition. She found herself admiring him more with each step, each story. Each moment of shared laughter or quiet reflection, they continued along the trail, talking about dreams, favorite memories, small hopes for the future. He spoke about wanting his child to grow up kind and curious, to understand the value of honesty and care. She shared her hopes for herself, the life she wanted to live, the kind of connection she sought. There was a sense of compatibility, a shared understanding of what mattered in life, and it felt comforting and real at one point. They encountered a small group of hikers struggling with directions. He offered to help, calmly explaining the path and giving advice on where to go. She watched, impressed by his patience and willingness to assist without hesitation. It was the same quiet kindness she had noticed in the cafe, in the park, in the little moments before. It was consistent, sincere, and deeply human. They sat again on a bench overlooking a small valley. He spoke about the balance between work, life, and parenting.
Ow!
He made time for small joys despite the demands of responsibility. She found herself inspired by his approach, realizing that life could be challenging, yet fulfilling when handled with care and intention. She shared her thoughts on balance, on finding joy in simple moments, and he listened attentively. Offering reflections that showed understanding and empathy, the conversation moved to lighter topics, stories that brought laughter and easy smiles. She noticed how naturally humor appeared in his stories, gentle and unforced, a reflection of his perspective on life. She shared a few funny memories of her own, and he laughed softly, the sound warm and genuine. She felt a sense of connection that went beyond attraction, a recognition of shared values, humor, and outlook on life as the afternoon wore on. He suggested they explore a small clearing where wildflowers grew. They walked through the soft grass, careful not to crush the flowers, and admired the colors and shapes. He told a story about his child picking flowers for him, the pride and joy in the boy's face when he presented them. She smiled, feeling a soft warmth in her chest at the thought of him as a father. So present, so gentle, so real. She noticed herself relaxing more than she had in a long time. The past worries, the doubts, the cautious hesitations seemed to fade in his presence. He had a way of making the ordinary feel important, the small moments feel rich and meaningful. She felt comfortable, at ease, and quietly happy. It was a different kind of connection, not dramatic or intense, but steady and real. The kind that could grow over time into something strong. They paused at a small hilltop, looking out over the valley below. The sunlight was soft, casting long shadows, and the air carried a gentle breeze. He spoke about the importance of perspective, of seeing the bigger picture even when life felt complicated. She listened, realizing that his words reflected not just thoughtfulness, but wisdom gained through experience. She felt a quiet admiration for his insight. The way he carried his responsibilities with care and clarity. She shared a story from her past, a time she had felt lost and unsure of her path. He listened attentively, nodding, asking gentle questions, and offering reflections without judgment. She realized that talking to him felt different from other conversations she had had. It was not about impressing or hiding. It was about being understood and valued. She felt a growing trust, recognition that she could share more of herself without fear as the sun began to lower. They started walking back along the trail. The light softened, and the colors of the landscape shifted to warmer tones. They spoke about small plans for the coming days, hobbies, books they enjoyed, places they wanted to visit. She felt a sense of normalcy and ease, as if being with him was not an event or a test, but a natural extension of life itself. It was calming, reassuring, and quietly exciting. They stopped by a small wooden bridge over the creek. He pointed out the way the water reflected the sky, and she marveled at the simplicity and beauty of it. He spoke about the importance of noticing these small moments, the everyday wonders that often go unnoticed. She realized he had a perspective that valued life deeply, that found joy and meaning in details others might overlook. She felt inspired, seeing the world through his eyes even briefly as the trail ended. They walked toward the car park. She felt a reluctance to end the time together, wishing the afternoon could stretch longer. He noticed and smiled quietly, acknowledging the feeling without needing to say much. She felt a quiet comfort in his presence, a recognition that their connection was growing naturally and steadily. It was not rushed or forced. It was unfolding in its own time. Before partying, he asked if she would like to meet again soon. She agreed, feeling a quiet excitement at the thought. They exchanged gentle smiles, the kind that held understanding and anticipation. She realized that she was looking forward to seeing him again, not because of obligation or expectation, but because being with him felt meaningful and real. As she drove home, she reflected on the afternoon. The connection she felt was deeper than she had expected, grounded in shared values, understanding, and mutual respect. She realized that the initial joke she had anticipated was nowhere in sight. Instead, she found a man who was thoughtful, kind, patient, and sincere. She admired him, not just for the way he cared for his child, but for the way he carried himself and approached life shy. Thought about the small moments that had stood out to her, his gentle laughter, the way he listened, the way he noticed and valued the world around him. She realized that these ordinary details revealed more about a person than any dramatic gesture could. She felt a quiet hope, a sense of possibility, and a recognition that this was the start of something meaningful. That night, she replayed the stories he had told, the moments of laughter, the quiet reflections, and the gentle gestures. She felt a sense of warmth and calm, a rare feeling in her life in recent times. She realized that the blind date, which she had agreed to reluctantly and expected to be a joke, had turned into a meaningful experience. The single dad she had met was real, grounded, and deeply human. She understood that life could bring unexpected connections, that people could surprise us with their depth and sincerity, and that sometimes the most important relationships begin quietly and gently. She felt grateful for the afternoon, for his honesty, and for the way he made her feel seen and understood. She knew there would be challenges ahead, that life was not simple, and that dating someone with a child would bring responsibilities and considerations she had not experienced before. But she also knew that this connection was worth exploring, worth nurturing, and worth taking seriously. She felt ready to continue, curious about the future, and quietly excited to see where this story would lead. And in that quiet reflection, she realized that the blind date was no joke, and the single dad was far more real and remarkable than she had imagined. It was a beginning, a chance to discover something meaningful, and a story that was only just starting to unfold. The days that followed their last meeting were filled with quiet anticipation. She found herself looking forward to their next time together, thinking about the small gestures, the soft laughter, the stories he shared. There was a warmth that had begun to grow inside her, a feeling she had not expected so soon. It was not just attraction, it was curiosity, admiration, and a sense of ease that she had rarely felt with anyone before he suggested spending a weekend together at a local market that she had never visited. She agreed, happy for the chance to see him again, to share an experience that was simple but meaningful. She arrived early, enjoying the soft morning light, the gentle hum of people moving about, and the smell of fresh bread from the stalls. She felt a nervous excitement, not the kind that comes from fear, but the kind that comes from wanting to see someone and enjoy their presence when he arrived. He carried a small tote bag and a quiet smile. She noticed the calm in the way he walked, the attentiveness in his eyes as he observed the surroundings. They greeted each other with an easy warmth, and together they began to explore the market. The stalls were colorful, full of fresh vegetables, fruits, handmade crafts, and baked goods. He moved thoughtfully, stopping to point out something interesting or asking questions that showed he was paying attention to her thoughts and reactions. They sampled small bites from different stalls, laughing softly at flavors that surprised them. She noticed the gentle way he interacted with the vendors, polite, patient, and kind. It was the same care she had seen in the cafe, in the park, in the nature trail. He carried it everywhere, quietly consistent, showing thoughtfulness without needing recognition. She felt a growing admiration for him, the kind that comes from seeing someone's character in action as they walked. She asked about his child, curious about the routines, the small victories, and the little challenges. He spoke with honesty, sharing the joys and difficulties of parenting. He told her about a recent school project that had gone wrong and how they had worked together to fix it, laughing at the mess it had created. She smiled, imagining the scene, feeling warmth at the way he described the moments with care and affection. She shared some of her own experiences from work and family life, moments that were funny, frustrating, or just ordinary. He listened carefully, asking gentle questions that made her feel heard and understood. She realized that this connection was different from anything she had felt before. It was not about impressing or performing. It was about sharing honestly and being met with the same openness after exploring the market. They decided to sit at a small cafe nearby. The afternoon sun filtered through the windows, casting a soft glow on the tables. They ordered tea and small pastries and continued their conversation. She noticed how naturally the talk flowed, moving from light stories to deeper reflections. He spoke about his hopes for the future, not in grand terms, but in the quiet dreams of creating stability and happiness for his child. She shared her own aspirations, and he listened with genuine interest. Offering reflections that felt thoughtful and kind during their conversation, a misunderstanding arose with a vendor. A mix-up over an order caused a little tension, and she watched how he handled it. He remained calm, polite, and patient, resolving the issue without frustration or anger. She felt impressed by the way he managed conflict, the quiet steadiness that came from experience and care. It was a reminder that his kindness was not just for show, it was a deep part of who he was. After leaving the cafe, they walked along a nearby street lined with small shops. She felt a growing sense of comfort and curiosity. She asked him more personal questions about his childhood, his family, and the values he held. He spoke honestly, without boasting or exaggeration, revealing the experiences that shaped him, the lessons he had learned, and the ways he tried to live with integrity. She felt a quiet respect for him, for his ability to carry responsibility with grace as the day progressed. She noticed herself feeling more relaxed than she had in months. The nervousness that often accompanied new relationships was gone, replaced by a steady curiosity and a desire to know more. She realized that she trusted him, not blindly, but because she had seen his character through words and actions. She admired the way he approached life with care, patience, and thoughtfulness. And she wanted to continue seeing how that unfolded. They decided to take a short walk in a nearby park before heading home. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows and painting the sky in soft hues. They walked side by side, sometimes speaking, sometimes simply enjoying the quiet presence of each other. She noticed the ease in his company, the way he carried himself, the subtle gestures of consideration that made her feel safe and valued. She felt a quiet happiness in simply being near him during the walk. He shared a story about a recent challenge with his child, a moment that had tested patience and understanding. She listened, smiling at the humor and warmth in his recounting, feeling touched by his dedication and love. She shared a small story from her own life, and he responded with attentiveness and care. She realized that these small exchanges, ordinary as they seemed, were building trust and connection between them. As the evening approached, they reached a small fountain in the park. He suggested sitting for a moment and enjoying the quiet. She agreed, and they watched the water ripple softly, listening to the faint sounds of the city around them. He spoke about the importance of taking small pauses in life, of noticing the simple things that often go unnoticed. She reflected on this, realizing how rare it was to find someone who valued these moments and could share them. So naturally, the conversation turned to fears and doubts. Not in a heavy way, but in the sense of sharing and understanding each other's vulnerabilities. She spoke about moments of insecurity, about past disappointments, and he listened with care, offering gentle reflections. He shared his own worries, the moments when parenting and life felt overwhelming, and how he worked through them with patience and thoughtfulness. She felt a growing bond, a recognition that they were beginning to understand each other on a deeper level. They walked back slowly toward the parking area.
With the sky now painted in soft colors of dusk.
She felt a mixture of contentment and longing, wishing the day could stretch longer. He noticed the expression on her face and smiled quietly, acknowledging the feeling without words. She realized that his presence brought a sense of calm and security that she had not experienced before. She felt grateful for it before parting ways. He asked if she would like to meet again soon. She agreed, feeling a quiet excitement at the thought. They exchanged soft smiles, the kind that held understanding and anticipation. And she realized that the connection they were forming was growing steadily and naturally. It was not forced, not rushed, just unfolding in its own time. On the drive home, she reflected on the day. She felt admiration for his patience, his kindness, his thoughtfulness, and the quiet strength that came from living life with care. She realized that the blind date she had initially thought would be a joke had become something meaningful, something that offered hope and warmth. She felt a growing curiosity about the future, about the experiences they would share. And the bond that was quietly forming that night, she lay awake thinking about the day, the stories, the laughter, and the quiet reflections. She realized that she was beginning to trust him, to feel comfortable and safe in his presence, and to value the depth of his character. She understood that life could bring unexpected connections, that people could surprise you with their sincerity, and that sometimes the most important relationships started quietly and gently. She also recognized that challenges would come, that life was not simple, and that dating someone with a child required consideration, patience, and understanding. But she felt ready to embrace these challenges, curious to see how they could navigate them together. And inspired by the way he approached life with care and integrity, the blind date had started as a joke. But the man she had met was no joke. He was real, grounded, and deeply human. She felt a quiet hope, a sense of possibility, and the recognition that this story was still unfolding, with new experiences, challenges, and joys ahead. She knew that the connection they shared was worth exploring, nurturing, and discovering, and in that quiet reflection, she felt a sense of gratitude for the moments they had shared, for the laughter, the stories, the honesty, and the warmth. She realized that sometimes life brings people together in ways that surprise you, that challenge your expectations, and that offer a chance to experience something genuine and meaningful. She drifted to sleep with thoughts of him, of the day, and of the simple joys they had shared. She felt a quiet excitement for the next meeting, a desire to see how their connection could grow, and a sense of calm that came from knowing she had met someone real and sincere. She understood that this was only the beginning, that the path ahead would have moments of joy and challenge, and that she was ready to walk it with openness and care. And in that understanding, she smiled softly, knowing that the blind date was no longer a joke. The single dad she had met was someone worth discovering, appreciating, and learning from. The story was unfolding slowly, naturally. She felt lucky to be part of it. The following week arrived with a quiet excitement she had not felt in a long time. She thought about the moments they had shared, the small gestures, the laughter, the easy conversations, and the quiet honesty that seemed to flow between them naturally. She realized that her expectations for a blind date had been completely wrong. What she had once thought would be a joke had become something deeply meaningful, something that made her heart feel lighter and her thoughts more hopeful. He suggested a visit to a small community event, something simple where families gathered for crafts, games, and music. She agreed, curious to see him in a setting where his child might be present. She wondered what it would be like to witness the small ways he cared for his child, to see how he managed responsibilities while still finding time to enjoy life. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, but mostly she felt ready to experience something new when she arrived. She saw him standing near a small booth, holding his child's hand, helping him balance on the curb as they waited to watch a performance. The sight made her smile softly. He looked calm, patient, and completely present. The way he interacted with his child was gentle but firm, playful yet responsible. She realized that parenting had shaped him in ways she admired, giving him a depth and strength that she could not ignore. They greeted each other with quiet smiles, and she felt the ease of familiarity. It was not the first time they had met, but it was different now. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a recognition of shared experiences and growing trust. They walked together, chatting softly, observing the small performances and the children playing games. She felt warmth in her chest at the sight of him laughing with his child, the soft joy in his eyes that came from being present and engaged throughout the afternoon. She noticed the little things again, the gestures that revealed character, the way he encouraged his child to try a game, praising small victories and offering gentle guidance when needed, the way he spoke to other parents, polite and considerate, offering help without hesitation. She realized that these moments were more meaningful than anything she could have imagined. This was not a man putting on an image for a date. This was someone living authentically, caring deeply, and balancing responsibilities with grace. She joined in some of the activities, helping with a small game, laughing at the playful chaos around them. He watched with a soft smile, occasionally teasing her gently. And she felt a growing connection, not just to him, but to the small family he had created. She realized that being part of his world, even in small ways, made her feel welcomed, accepted, and valued. She felt a quiet joy in simply observing the way he moved through life with care and thoughtfulness. They paused near a small table with refreshments. He poured a drink for his child, then offered one to her. She accepted, noticing the careful attention he gave to every action. There was no rush, no desire to impress, only a genuine presence that made her feel comfortable. She found herself talking more openly, sharing stories from her childhood, her hopes, and even her fears. He listened patiently, occasionally asking gentle questions, making her feel understood without pressure or judgment. At one point, a small challenge arose. The child dropped a craft they had been working on, and he calmly helped to pick up the pieces, offering reassurance and encouragement. She noticed how naturally he handled the situation, patient and kind, giving attention without overreacting. She realized that his approach to parenting mirrored his approach to life, thoughtful, steady, and attentive. She felt admiration grow quietly inside her, stronger than she had expected. As the afternoon faded into evening, they found a quiet spot on a small bench under a tree. The lights softened, and the sounds of laughter and music became gentle in the background. They sat together, talking about simple things, observing the world, and sharing small reflections. She realized that this was what she had been longing for in life, someone who could offer companionship, understanding, and quiet joy without drama or pretense. She felt herself opening more. Sharing her heart in a way that felt safe and natural, he spoke about the future. Not in grand or dramatic terms, but in quiet hopes and plans. How he wanted to continue building a loving environment for his child. How he hoped to find balance and happiness. How he valued honesty and connection. She listened, inspired by his vision and the care with which he approached life. She shared her own thoughts, hopes, and small dreams, and he responded with understanding and encouragement. She realized that this conversation, gentle and meaningful, was unlike any she had experienced before. They walked together slowly as the evening cooled. The child ran ahead briefly, then returned laughing, and he guided him gently with a hand on his shoulder. She watched and felt a mix of admiration and quiet warmth. The presence of his child did not complicate the moment. It enriched it, showing her the depth of his care and the strength of his character. She understood that being with him meant accepting and appreciating this reality, and she felt ready to do so as they reached the edge of the park. He suggested grabbing a small dinner nearby. She agreed, enjoying the idea of extending the time together. At the restaurant, they ordered simple meals and continued their easy conversation. She felt comfortable, relaxed, and fully present. There was no need for pretension, no pressure to perform, only the quiet pleasure of companionship. She realized that these moments, ordinary as they seemed, were building a foundation for trust, understanding, and connection during the meal. A small misunderstanding arose between them over a menu item. They laughed softly at the confusion, resolving it with patience and calm. She noticed again the steady presence he maintained, handling minor frustrations without irritation or complaint. She felt reassured, realizing that this quality extended beyond parenting into all aspects of his life. She admired him quietly, feeling a growing sense of respect and affection after dinner. They walked along a quiet street toward her car. The night was cool, the air soft, and the city lights glimmered gently. They talked about small plans for the coming days, hobbies, books, and shared reflections. She felt a growing certainty that this connection was significant, built on honesty, kindness, and shared values. She understood that love, or at least the beginning of it, did not need to be dramatic or loud. It could grow quietly, steadily, and meaningfully. He asked if she would like to meet again soon, and she nodded, feeling a warm excitement. There was no rush, no pressure, only the gentle promise of more time together. She realized that she wanted to continue exploring this connection, to see where it might lead, and to be part of the life he had created with care and thoughtfulness. She felt hope, warmth, and anticipation for the days ahead as she drove home. She reflected on the entire journey. She remembered the first meeting, expecting a joke, and how wrong she had been. Each meeting had revealed more of him, more of his depth, patience, kindness, and integrity. She realized that she had not only grown to admire him, but she had also grown to trust him, respect him, and feel comfortable in his presence. The blind date that began as a joke had become a meaningful story. Full of quiet joy and connection that night, she lay awake thinking about the weekend. The laughter, the quiet moments, the gentle care he had shown his child, and the thoughtful presence he had shown her. She felt a sense of completeness she had not expected, a calm joy that filled her chest and relaxed her mind. She understood that life sometimes brings people together in ways that surprise you, that challenge your expectations, and that offer opportunities for real connection. She knew there would be challenges ahead, that life with him and his child would require patience, understanding, and care. But she felt ready to embrace these challenges, inspired by the way he lived his life, the way he cared for his child, and the way he treated her with honesty and respect. She realized that she had found something rare, something worth nurturing, exploring, and appreciating over the next few days. It continued meeting in small, quiet ways. Short walks, casual meals, and visits to local spots allowed them to grow closer while observing the realities of each other's lives. She noticed the steady, reliable presence he maintained in all situations, the care he showed to his child, and the sincerity he extended to her. Each encounter strengthened her trust, admiration. In growing affection, she began imagining a future where they continued building this connection, integrating their lives slowly and thoughtfully. She thought about sharing small joys, supporting each other in challenges, and creating a sense of stability and happiness together. She realized that she was willing to invest in this relationship to grow alongside him, to embrace the reality of loving someone who was already deeply committed to another life.